This is a Senna. So what we're looking at here, whenever we're going to be building some guilds out here. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about what that is. So guilds are basically, if you were to go out in nature, you see that a lot of plants are kind of just working together on their own. And in permaculture, what we're trying to do is we're really trying to mimic different features and things that are actually happening in nature as we walk around and observe on hikes and things like that. And so what we have here is a pineapple guava. And so whenever we build these guilds, we want to think of first having a ground cover. We got this Greg's Mistflower, we got some irises down here. I'm using that to really cut back on some of this grass. So this Mistflower, Frogfruit, there's a bunch of different ground covers that we can use to kind of compete with some of the grass. So we do ground cover to shade that, and then we build up our next layer, which will be small shrubs. So that'll be like this Rosemary and this Yarrow. And then as we go up into our next layer, we're gonna go into the pineapple guava, which has a beautiful flower. Works best kind of with additional pineapple guavas. Another one that's over here, that's a shrub, next layer, but it's a bean. So this is part of the legume family. Anything that's part of the legume or pea family can be used to fix nitrogen. So what it does is it pulls nitrogen out of the air and it sets it into these little nodules in its root system. And as we prune some of this back, it's going to lose some of that root system, and it's going to deposit those little nitrogen nodules in there for other plants to use. We want to also think about flowering plants too. So all of these kind of also bring in pollinators into the guild. This is a salvia. We got things like figs, and these will be our next layer. So we get up into the larger canopy there, and then we can even get even larger with like a peach or even a nut tree like a pecan or something like that. Can be even your taller tree. So you can still even plant fruit trees underneath that canopy layer. But so check out guilds online. Basically it's about building these layering techniques and building these collections of plants together to where you can kind of get more compaction, get more use, and then all of them benefit each other. You also want to look for plants that are going to be like broadleaf kind of plants for mulching. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. Let's go ahead and finish out this line right here. So we got Barbados Cherry. This is a dwarf Barbados Cherry. It's got a little edible berry on it. You got to compete with the birds on that. This is a dwarf Granny Smith apple that I just planted, so we'll try that. I got a power line up here, so I got to keep everything under a certain height, and I'm going to prune back, prune things short. You know, you want to prune it basically. Think about you want to prune it to the sizes that you can be able to harvest from easy. So you don't even really want a lot of the trees to go maybe above 10 feet unless you really want a higher story or something like that in your guild, or a shade or something. But you know, keeping them low, it really makes it easier to harvest, and you can plant more trees into a space. So as you can see, these trees are pretty closely planted together. So we got a fig right here, shrub, another dwarf shrub, and then a peach right there. Snow peach, early peach. This right here is goji berries. I'd really encourage growing goji berries. Find them at the nursery. They grow pretty well. After the first year, you want to cut back some of these longer stalks on the bottom, and that allows it to produce on the bottom, produce young shoots down there. The goji berries fresh are really good. But to be honest, the first time I ate one, I think it was maybe out of season. Sugars and bitters and stuff like that can change depending on the heat. So I ate one at one point. It was like really bitter, and I just like almost threw up out here. But there is times whenever it's really sweet and it's really good. Drying them out also kind of gets rid of some of that bitterness at those stages too. So drying them out more commonly, the form that you'll see them in at the stores. This is also just a salvia, I believe. That's a native plant. It grows really well. So a lot of these within this guild system here are kind of natives too. So I really tried to stick with some of that because this is a little bit on that fringe of my garden. These is borage. So this is going to make a really broad leaf. It's going to have a pollinator flower on it, so it's good for pollinators. This is something that you would want maybe for a ground cover too, you know, broadleaf too. It makes its own mulch. So basically, if once a leaf like this gets damaged, I can chop it and drop it. And actually what you always want to kind of do too, if you get the chance, is just kind of bury it sometimes too. That keeps the nitrogen as that leaves that leaf going into the soil. We got other things over here like a little bean, you know, so I'm always just kind of taking handfuls of seeds and just planting them around in the garden too. At a certain rate, you just want to kind of have as many plants kind of going as possible. Telephone pole, use it for pollinators. So we got a kind of like a native leguminous plant that grew in here, so that's going to stay. It's wild, but that is going to do everything better. And then we got crossvine on here. It's important to try to get the crossvine, not the trumpet vine. The flowers look the exact same. This one's less invasive. Trumpet vine is intolerable. Letting everything go to seed after it kind of goes is really important, because you really want that seed to be able to drop. As we said, it's always good to just be throwing seeds around, because things like this, you'll have the opportunity whenever lettuce will kind of pop out of various areas. So this is lettuce. It's in my walkway by the road. You know, it's not where I wanted to plant it, but definitely a plant that I'd still want. So snapdragons, pollinator up here on the edge. You know, this is going to be where I want to be able to view as I'm driving up. Another functional plant, really, really beautiful, is a Swiss chard. They got varieties of colors. Show you that real quick. You know, awesome stuff to have kind of up front. Looks very nice. Another just wild sunflower. We'll see if it'll stay or if it'll go. But what we want to look at here, now that we're at this point, is along this line here, that's a bunch of native plants and fruit trees and things like that. I have my gray water system. So this hose right here basically drains into a pit that's right here that I'm going to step down into. And so this hose comes from my washer machine. So the washing machine is the easiest and quickest way to start getting some of that gray water system out here. You use a biodegradable soap. You know, you make sure it doesn't want to have a lot of salts and stuff in it. Biodegradable soaps usually are better for that. And you basically just run it out into the yard, and it can does really well with fruit trees and things like that that'll have really deep root systems. So yeah, we really want to be able to use, especially in the summer here, you know, whenever the ground starts just drying up and you see the cracks in the clay soil, you know, it's really hard for that water, as you water, for that to do anything, because there's not any moisture in the soil because of the large cracks. So covering soil completely all the time with organic matter, you know, wood chips, leaves, things like that really kind of help keep moisture in, but also just introducing these gray water systems.